Hi everybody, it's Tyler here at Championships. Check in legendary 1678 Citrus Circus. 3 incredible wins this year and an impact award as well too. Citrus Circus has always been the complete package from everything they do, of course, here with the robot, to the service center, so much more they're doing to impact the community as well too. And the robot is absolutely phenomenal. Once again, it's always a pleasure to take a look at the cool different creative designs and the software that goes into this. So keep an eye out as we go through that coral journey, talk about some of the algae as well and some great software attributes that you're going to really want to pay attention to. So let's learn more about them coming up here on Behind the Bumpers. Okay, let's start to work through this robot here, talking about the intake system you developed and the indexing and how all this starts to go through.
Absolutely. So over here on our intake, we at Citrus love a couple things. We love a super wide area to grab with, and we love rolly grabbers. So we combine both of those things into our intake. We can grab from basically anywhere, and that just gives our driver a lot more room of air, a lot more places to work with. We also love to do 4-bar intakes here. So this intake is really nice because if we get a hit from the front, the whole intake can collapse up and into the robot instead of collapsing in on itself like you see with some of these slap-down intakes at this event. This intake's gone through a lot of iteration over this. We started with a completely different design. We pivoted halfway through the year after our first competition. The big thing we were able to add with this new design, there's a lot more space to work with, so we were able to add this ramp and these flanges right here. These allow us to already start our indexing journey at the very front of the coral intake, and it allows us our indexer back here to be way smaller. At our first competition this year, our indexer was basically from all the way here, all the way over to here. And as you might imagine, that made there a lot of room in the middle of this where coral could just kind of end up and it would bounce around. There's a little bit of a dead spot that by doing this ramp and by making this whole thing, this whole indexer one cohesive unit, we were able to kill that dead spot, and it's all a lot more fluid. And we've gone down into all the way down here at the very end of the indexer. You can see where we grab a piece of coral, and we will show that now. Real quick. Yeah.
So looking from this rebuild that you did here and going in, is there anything else that when you went from your last event into Champs, did you make any more changes, or is there anything else you maybe would change in retrospect?
In retrospect, I would make this a lot more serviceable. It's a bit of an issue with any 4-bar intake just because of how complex the mechanism is, but any single change on here takes like 30 to 45 minutes to actually be able to do, which really sucks in like a high-stress event where you have to make your changes fast. But I'm pretty happy with how this intake turned out overall. And the main thing we changed from our last event was we made this carbon fiber way thicker. At Contra Costa, which was our week 5 event, we were running 1/2-inch carbon fiber instead of 1-inch carbon fiber. And by the end of the event, this middle piece of carbon fiber literally bent in half and cracked down the middle. So that was our big change for this event.
Fair enough with that. Let's pass over to Emma, talk more about the elevator system that you had in the end effector as well, and of course anything else you might want to cover on this awesome machine.
Yeah, so for the elevator, we really wanted to focus on speed and weight and CG. So our elevator is a 2-stage continuous elevator powered by string, and everything is 2x1 tubes, and our carriage is just a simple 2x2 tube. So because we really want to care about weight, you can see, take a look at our carriage, that everything is mounted below below the top half of the carriage, so including our gearbox and our motor. So what's really nice about this gearbox is that it's actually on a whole slot, so especially since we're running a belt, which makes it easy to skip at times, we can easily tension the gearbox by turning that West Coast Products cam. Moving on to our end effector, we just made it incredibly lightweight using only like polycarb, the max composite, and 3D printed materials. So you can see that one motor powers both sides of the end effector. You have the coral side over here, and then you have the algae side on this side. So another thing that we found with the elevator, just because of our architecture, that we had to keep it fairly narrow, which leads to a lot of wobbling around, especially when you reach into the L4 or the net scoring. So we've added this strut here with 2 opposite threaded O-rings to tighten or loosen. And then we also shifted the top plates diameters. At the very top, there's bolts that mount into the tube blocks. We shifted the diameters inwards by 20 thou just to make sure that we're reducing the amount of gap between the elevator tubes and to actually pinch down on the tubes to prevent any wiggle at the very top of the scoring.
such a smooth process. It's so fun to watch this robot on the field compete and gain the quick cycles that you do for that as well too. Jack, let's talk about the LG intake and the climber on this robot as well too. Climber-wise, I'd love to hear too, like if you went through any iterations on your climber itself, would be great to hear about.
Yeah, so we started the event starting week 1. We really didn't use the algae intake much because we were spending most of the time filling up the reef. But it really came into play by week 5 when we were filling up that reef. And the last thing we could do was take the ground algae off the ground, put it up in the net. Was a valuable strategic mechanism. Mechanical-wise, it's just 2 simple plates on a gearbox. These are a composite material, so it's super flexy and can take big hits while still running and intaking algae. So that's been a great help for us so far. And for the climber, this is our second main version of it. Started off, it took around 20 seconds for our week 1 and 3 events. Really slowed us down in the end game. Took a while to line up our climb. Now though, we're using these big wings, directing the cage into the wheels, spinning here and latching in with these mechanisms. So really once we grab on, it's locked in. We're gonna hold on until the end of the match. And it's really sped up our climb now to the past about 10 seconds at the end of the match. So that's able to add us a couple more cycles in the end game and get us a few extra points towards the end of the match.
So here at Championships, how have you seen the meta evolve from when you were at Contra Costa into the championship event? How has that gameplay evolved for Citrus, or even for what you've seen so far against your opponents?
Yeah, I think at this very start of the competitions, we've been more going for L4 and working our way down. Now that we're with such competitive teams and we've improved ourselves, that we start with L4 and we're confident we can fill it up. So we start L4, segment it up, and then within our alliance, we work our way down, all the way down to L2, and we can trust that we'll still have that full reef. And then throughout the match, if any algae gets in our way, we're able to clean that up, put it in the net, and really just getting into the smooth flow of the game and just making it flow smoothly. Yeah.
Michal, let's talk about some software aspects on this robot here. Lots of great stuff to go through for this. I know we're going to set the robot down on the floor here, but I mean, once again, I think Citrus and just all the great different automation, the lineups, everything that goes into what your team does. Walk me through some of it.
Yeah, so first thing, you can see our whole dashboard here, as well as our Limelight streams up on a separate camera. We use all of that to verify our robot is completely ready to run and stuff while disabled. For our Limelights, we have 2. Sorry, I'll point out the Limelights really quick. We have one up here, which we use for a mix of detection and pose estimation. In auto, this is the Limelight that we use for our coral detection and detecting the game pieces. We use it to estimate all the poses of the coral so that we can just PID to pose to all of them. One cool thing we do in our autos is that depending on the auto, we zone out different areas on the field that detections are allowed to be on, which means that we're avoiding the marks and stuff, which allows us to be compatible with our partners a lot of the time. And we have a second Limelight, which is harder to see, but it's all the way down here. And this is our main one we use for all of our reef scoring. And what that means is that as we're driving around, not all the time it's able to see, but when it's able to see, it's in a great spot to see like at any point of the reef, and it's able to score on both branches. I'm gonna get more into our LED feedback, but this is specifically us making sure that everything on our robot is ready while disabled. On our pivot here, super cool, we have one LED strip that's telling us what direction we need to move the pivot in to be at the correct spot for our auto start. And so as you see, I move it up. It gets closer and closer to the color until I'm at the right spot. And that means that the pivot's in the right spot. And we use a similar thing for vision, this strip here. And once all of those are solid green, that tells us we're ready for the match. And if anything is awry, these LEDs immediately tell us, and it's really easy for us to figure out what we need to check. And it's what allows us to be so consistent in our matches.
Well, why don't you walk us through some different systems demos and let's take a look at what those are.
We're gonna start by re-zeroing really quick.
And Mehal, can you walk us through what's happening during this too?
So we're gonna go through one of our systems checks really quick. We're gonna start with an L4, followed by an L3, L2, and L1, and we'll just go down the reef. And while we're doing that, you'll notice our LEDs are updating with like blinks, depending on the side of the branch. Sorry, depending on the side of the face we're scoring on, our LEDs auto update in color, which lets our driver know which branch is the closest one that's being targeted, which allows us to go figure out exactly where we're targeting and just clean up our cycles without adding a ton of complexity. Now we're gonna do an algae pull off the reef. All of this, the coral scores and the algae pulls, are auto aligns, so our driver just presses a single button and everything happens. Now we're gonna go into our nets score, and just with all of these modes, you can see our LEDs are constantly changing, which allows us to figure out exactly what mode we're in, and it allows our driver to not have to be looking down at the laptop to figure out exactly what's happening with the robot.
Mehal and team, this has been a phenomenal overview of what a great robot that you have here. First off, thank you to Citrus for all the awesome contributions that you make to the FRC community and beyond as well too. And of course, the inspiration that the robot brings. Really a complete package of a team. We can't wait to see how you do here at Worlds, both on the impact and also on the robot side as well too. Good luck the rest of the way.